Next, we're going to be starting to work with our abilities. So to do that, we're going to be starting off with creating a blueprint interface again to allow us to communicate a little bit with our abilities. So we're going to be making a blueprint interface, which we call BPI for blueprint interface, and ability. Let's go for ability, singular, like so. And this one function that we're going to be having in here is going to be called getCurrentTarget. And it's going to be returning an actor reference. So we're going to be calling this one target actor. So we're descriptive with our names, so it's easy to see. Then we're going to be going into our third person character, and we're going to be adding our BPI not that, ability, like so. There we go. From there, we're going to be starting to making our abilities. So we're going to be making a placeholder ability first. So we're going to be calling this one, it's going to be a blueprint of type actor. I'm going to call it BP for blueprint and ability. And then we're going to be making a folder, which we call abilities. We're then going to be making a child of BP ability, which we're going to be calling BP ability child. And the reason for this is we're going to be moving it into abilities here. We click move here. So this will be the ability. Later on when we make more abilities, we'll just duplicate this one, which is a child of the ability, so it will be a child. So all our children we will be creating in here, and we just keep our base class, our parent, over here for now. Now, to facilitate that we're gonna have a lot of functionality in our abilities, we're gonna be making some event dispatchers to make it easier for us to keep track of when certain things are happening. So we're going to go into our third person character again, and we're going to be creating a few event dispatchers. So we're going to be calling one first, ability cooldown end, and we're going to make one called ability cooldown start. Because generally when you have abilities in games, you have a cooldown, right? An ability where you, a certain period of time we're not able to use a certain ability. So we're going to be implementing that functionality. In addition to this, we're going to be creating an event dispatcher called animation ability trigger. That'll be fine, I think. It will make more sense later on, I believe. But for now, this is probably fine. So if we go to the ability cooldown end, we go up here to inputs. We're going to add to the signature, its sort of interface. We're going to choose BP ability that we just created. So. And as the name, we're just going to be typing in ability. It will be descriptive because of the way that the event dispatcher is named. So ability cooldown end means that the ability that comes in here is the one that has its cooldown is done. So going to our event cooldown start, we're going to be doing the same thing. We're going to add BP ability, and we're going to be calling this one ability as well, like so. When it comes to the ability trigger, this one will not be needing a signature. And this one will make more sense later on, hopefully. So for now, this is what we have created then. Now, these do not have anything to listen to at this point, but as we expand upon the functionality of the abilities, then these will have something to work with. So we will be getting back to them at a later point. While we are here in our third person character, we want to make a few other helping functions while we're here. So one of the things that we will be doing is we're going to be playing some animations. So we're going to be creating a custom event We're going to be calling this server underscore play animation montage. We're going to be checking this one to be run on server reliably. Going to be making another custom event. We're going to be calling this one multi underscore play animation montage. We're going to be having it as a multicast and reliable. And the purposes of these are that they will allow us to play animations and make sure that all clients are showing the same animation for all the different other clients. And at this point, we're just going to be playing a animation montage, like so. And we're going to be wanting a reference now here, so we can drag the animation montage into our event over here. And then we can call over here on server, we call for multiplay animation montage, and then you'll see that it will have this input, and we'll just drag that one into the server one as well, so now they both have it. You could do something like this for play rates and stuff like that if you want to keep track of making sure that those are running at certain ways and stuff, but this is fine for us for now. But we are going to be needing one last function, and that is something that we will be calling play animation and bind use. We're going to be renaming that one so it's actually properly spelled. And this one is going to be a little bit advanced, because what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be binding our event that we did earlier here called animation ability trigger. So if we drag this one out here and we say bind, this is the node that we get. This event is something that we want to make use of, but we want to have it active as a delegate through the call of the function. So we can drag this into our start node over here, and that will allow us to get you can see here we have a delegate now for our event. In addition to that, we also want to play server animation montage that we just created. We hook these up like so, and we drag this animation montage over here as well, so we get an input for that, and then we clean this up a little bit. So the point of this is to call this event over here, and with a specific event, and a binding will be created for this specific event dispatcher. And then we're going to be playing a certain montage, and then we're done with this function. So that's what this will be doing. In addition to that, while we are in the third-person character, we're also going to be creating a variable, and we're going to be calling this available abilities, and we're going to be making it of the type BP ability, and we're going to be making it of the type array, like so. And this is for use later on, which we won't be making use of right now, but it's good to have. Yeah, I think we're done with the third person character for now. So let's start looking at our ability a little bit then. If we open up our BP ability over here, we can close down pretty much everything else except third person character might be useful. So we're gonna be needing a bunch of stuff in this one. So let's start off with some variables. We're gonna be needing a boolean which we can call canUse, which will be denoting if we are able to use an ability or not, and we'll set this as default to true. In addition to that, we will have a cooldown for our abilities, so we'll make that a float type. And as default, we can set it to something like 5 seconds. Oops. In addition to that, we're going to be wanting an animation, so we're going to be typing in animation. And we want to make this of the type and then montage. So, and then we want to have a target for our ability. So an intended target. And this intended target type we want to have as a third-person character. Like so. In addition to that, we want to keep track of who the owner is. So we call this use owner. It will also be a third-person character. And lastly, we want to have a sort of icon representation for our user interface for an ability. So we'll call this an image icon. And as the type, we'll type in a texture 2D object reference, like so. So that should cover all of our variables that we need. Now we need to have, as we talked about earlier, we had event dispatchers in our third-person character. We're going to be needing some here as well. So we're going to be making a event dispatcher here, and we're going to be calling it Cooldown Begin, let's say. And it will have an interface of a BP ability. Ability. So, and we're going to be having another one which we call cooldown end, and it will also have a BP ability which we name ability. So, in addition to that, we want to have some kind of functionality which is overloaded in the children, but what we need to begin with is a way to call upon this object from something that we will be creating later, an actor component. So we're going to be making a function here. And we're going to be calling this function attempt use. So this is the function that is called every time we try to do something, and this will validate if we're actually able to do something. So this one will have a few inputs. It will have 2 third-person characters. One we call owner, and one we call intended target. Type those together a little bit like so. So these are the 2 ones we want to send in. So immediately we want to have a branch here to check if we can use, because that's going to be our first validation. And if we are able to do that, then we want to get our reference for our owner, and we want to do play animation and bind use, which we created earlier. So, and this one wants to have an event. So what we do here is we drag off this and we type in, we go to event dispatcher and create event, get a little node like this. We'll say we want to create a matching event. Actually, let's do it this way. We want to let's go to our event graph. Let's create a custom event. Let's call it use confirmation, like so. Then it gives us an error because we haven't plugged in the create event over here. And then we'll go here and we say use confirmation. And we compile and save. So now that event is what's going to be hooked into this event over here to be used later on if that event dispatcher happens. And then we're going to be sending in an animation to play, and the animation is going to be the animation that we have over here as a variable right now. And after that, we're going to be setting our intended target. And our intended target is going to be the intended target that we get in from the call. Come on, there we go. Like so. And after that, we're gonna be setting our owner also. So we're gonna set our use owner to be what we sent in. Like so. So this is our first function. It's maybe a little bit complicated, but basically we're going to be attempt to use something from our inputs. We're going to check, are we able to use it? And this will this will come into function a little bit later. We're going to be making some logic for this. We're going to check if we can use it. Okay, fine. Then we're going to be calling an animation that will play. The animation at some point will trigger, which will call an event, which will then trigger this use confirmation event, which in turn will continue the logic. And while that is happening, we will set our intended target and our owner, so we have it for later. So let's go to our use confirmation here and see what we're going to be doing. So here we're going to be making first another custom event. We're going to be calling this one just use. And the very first thing that this use confirmation is going to be doing is it's going to be calling on use. Not use confirmation. We want this one, use. And this one should be having a few inputs. So 2 inputs on this one. We want to have its intended target. And we want to have its owner. So we're going to be taking these from our variables, so intended target, use owner, we're sending those in. And after that, we're going to be saying, okay, well, we have used our ability now. So we want to say we're going to start going on cooldown. So we're calling on our event dispatcher called call cooldown begin. Actually, is that the right one, I wonder? No. Let's do it like this. Let's make a few functions. Let's make a function called activate cooldown. And let's make a function called reset cooldown. And then we go back to our event graph and we call on the activate cooldown here, like so. And after that, we're gonna do unbind. If we take our owner, unbind animation. Let's do, that should be good enough. So we're basically saying, you want to hook this event up to this event that we just called. So the point of this is we don't want to listen to events unnecessarily. And we created an event earlier. Let's see, attempt use here. We created here that this event should happen when we get a ping back from over here. And then we get this ping and we get to use confirmation. And then we're saying, okay, now we're done our stuff over here. Stop listening for this. We don't want it to have it lying around because there's no need for it. The next time it's being used again, it will create another one of these events to listen to, and then we'll be unbinding it again. So it will clean up after itself each time, so to speak. So this is basically the whole functionality of this. And the point of this is that we separate this use to be here overloaded event. So all the children, what they will do, they will not have all of the logic that they have from their parent will just be in the parent. The only thing that they will overload is this function, and that's where they will put all of the functionality, and everything else will be handled by the parent, which makes making new abilities very easy to do. So let's go check out our activate cooldown ability, or function that we created here. The very first thing that we want to say is we want to say that we can't use this anymore. Since we have just used the ability, we can't use it. But we need to be able to find out when can we use it. So we'll create a timer by function name, and we'll make the function name. The function name that we're going to be calling is going to be the one that we created earlier, which is called reset cooldown. And again, this is important that you name it exactly correctly. Now you can see here I actually made a spelling mistake, so I'm going to make it fix that, so it's reset cooldown, so they're matching. And the cooldown, or the time that this is going to have, is the cooldown time. So it's going to wait for the cooldown time before it calls on this event. And we don't want it looping either, because it's just going to be called one time. And what this also needs to do is we need to say that, okay, our cooldown has begun, so now we will send our event dispatcher that I was alluding to earlier. So anyone who wants to know about this will, and listen to this event dispatcher, will know that this ability has now gone on cooldown. And then we're done here with our return. Like so. So let's go check out our reset cooldown ability, or function rather. Now this one is going to be called when the cooldown has happened. So we're going to be setting back our can use to be true again, so we can use the ability again. We're going to be calling our event dispatcher now, saying that the cooldown has ended, and we're going to be having a reference to ourselves because we are in the ability that the cooldown is done with, and then we're going to be returning, and that is all the functionality there. So I think that is all that we need here now. So we have the attempt use again, to reiterate quickly. We try to use something, we check if we are able to use something. If we are able to use something, we will call on this function in the third person character. The third person character will say that whatever event you sent in here is the one that should be connected with my event dispatcher called ability trigger here. And this we will come back to later, because this one is currently not being triggered anywhere. But when that trigger happens, the event will ping, and whoever is listening then will react to it. Then the server will play an animation for this. So if we go back to our ability, we get a ping over here from our animation saying that it has come to a certain point in the animation, and the ability has now triggered. When that happens, we go to our use confirmation and we say run whatever logic we have in the use function, which is overloaded per ability basis. Then we say activate our cooldown and remove our bind that we had that we were listening. So we go to our activate cooldown, which says you can no longer use this ability. We need to call on a function in a certain amount of time, which is the cooldown. And we say that our cooldown has begun to anyone who's interested. When the cooldown time has expired, this function will be called on, which will say we can use the ability again, and it will tell everybody who's interested in it that the cooldown has ended and it's done now to be used again. I hope that made sense. That is all for this episode. Hope to see you in the next one. Keep on learning. Take care.